The air in Washington, D.C., carried a metallic tang on August 12, 2025, as if the city itself were holding its breath. The morning sun glinted off the Lincoln Memorial, but its usual glow felt muted, overshadowed by the hum of tension that had settled over the Capitol. For weeks, the news had been a relentless drumbeat of President Donald Trump's promises to take back the city, his voice booming through every screen and speaker. Yesterday, he'd made good on that promise, invoking Section 740 of the D.C. Home Rule Act, a law few had heard of before now, but one that had turned the city upside down overnight. The Metropolitan Police Department was no longer under local control. The National Guard was on its way. And the president had declared it Liberation Day, despite crime statistics showing a 30-year low. Amara Brooks stood on the corner of 14th and U Street, her camera dangling from her neck, its weight a familiar anchor. At 29, she was a freelance photojournalist who'd spent years capturing the soul of D.C., its jazz clubs, its protests, its murals splashed across brick walls. Her lens had always been her shield, a way to make sense of the world without getting too close. But today, the city she loved felt foreign. Military Humvees rumbled down Constitution Avenue, their engines growling like distant thunder. Uniformed soldiers, faces young and taut, patrolled in pairs, their rifles slung low. Amara's pulse quickened as she adjusted her lens, zooming in on a guardsman's expression, stoic, but with a flicker of unease in his eyes. She'd grown up in Anacostia, in a row house where her grandmother's stories of the 1968 riots were as much a part of the walls as the peeling paint. They burned this city once, Gran would say, her voice low, and we rebuilt it. Don't let anyone tell you D.C. ain't strong. Amara had carried that strength with her, through every protest she'd photographed, every story she chased. But this felt different. The president's claim of a crime emergency rang hollow against the data. Homicides down 32%, robberies down 39%, assaults with weapons down 27%. Yet here were 800 National Guardsmen, deployed as if the city were a war zone, and the Metropolitan Police now answered to Attorney General Pam Bondi, not Mayor Muriel Bowser. Amara's phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from her best friend, Malik. You out there? Be careful. This ain't no game. She typed a quick reply, I'm good. Gotta see this for myself. And slipped the phone back into her jeans. Malik was a community organizer, always the first to rally a crowd, but even he sounded shaken. The city was fracturing, split between those who saw Trump's move as a necessary crackdown and those who saw it as a power grab, a middle finger to D.C.'s fight for self-governance. The Home Rule Act of 1973 had given the district a taste of autonomy, but Section 740 was a loophole, a federal override switch that let the president seize control of the police for up to 30 days. If he deemed an emergency existed. No one could remember it being used before. She snapped a photo of a group of protesters gathering near the Wilson Building, their signs scrawled with slogans, D.C. is not your playground and statehood now. The crowd was small but growing, their voices sharp with anger. Amara's heart tugged. She wanted to join them, to shout alongside them, but her job was to observe, to document. She moved closer, her camera clicking, capturing a woman in a hijab holding a megaphone, her words cutting through the morning air. This is our city. We elect our leaders, not him. The woman's eyes burned with defiance, and Amara felt a pang of recognition. That fire was D.C.'s heartbeat, the same one she'd seen in her grandmother's stories, in Malik's rallies, in the kids who danced at go-go shows despite the world telling them to be afraid. But the fire was flickering. Across the street, a man in a red cap shouted back, Trump's saving this city from chaos. A few others nodded, their faces hard. Amara's lens caught them too, their certainty, their fear. The city was a tinderbox, and Trump's move had struck a match. His claims of violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals echoed through his press conference, words that painted D.C. as a dystopia despite the Justice Department's own data showing crime at its lowest since the 1990s. Amara wondered what her grandmother would say now, watching soldiers patrol the streets she'd once marched. By noon, Amara was at Freedom Plaza, where the protest had swelled to hundreds. The air was thick with chants and the scent of sweat and asphalt. She moved through the crowd, her camera a silent witness. A young man, barely out of his teens, held a sign that read, Epstein Files equals truth. The reference stung. The recent release of documents tied to Jeffrey Epstein had reignited old controversies, with Trump's name tangled in the mess. No charges had been filed, but the whispers were loud, fueling distrust. Amara snapped the shot, her stomach twisting. She didn't know what to believe about the files, but she knew they were awound, reopening questions about power and accountability. She spotted Malik near the front, his dreads tied back, his voice booming through a bullhorn. "They want to control us because we don't bow," he shouted. "DC deserves a vote, a voice, statehood." The crowd roared, but Amara's eyes darted to the edges, where National Guardsmen stood, their hands resting on their rifles. One of them, a woman with a tight bun and a face that looked too young for her uniform, met Amara's gaze. For a moment, their eyes locked, and Amara saw something: doubt, maybe, or fear. She raised her camera, but the woman turned away. Amara's phone buzzed again. This time, it was her editor, Carla, at the DC Chronicle. "Got anything good? We need visuals for tomorrow's front page." Amara hesitated. She had plenty. Protesters, soldiers, the city's pulse laid bare, but something held her back. This wasn't just a story. It was her home. She texted back, "Working on it. We'll send soon." Then she slipped through the crowd, heading toward the Capitol. She needed to see more, to understand what this Liberation Day meant for the people she loved. The National Mall was eerily quiet, the usual tourists replaced by clusters of guardsmen and federal agents. Amara's boots crunched on the gravel as she walked, her camera at her hip. She thought of her grandmother again, who told her about the March on Washington, about standing shoulder to shoulder with strangers who became family in the fight for justice. "We didn't have statehood then, either," Gran had said, "but we had each other." Amara clung to that now, even as the weight of the present pressed down. She stopped near the reflecting pool, where a group of DC residents had gathered, not protesting but talking, their voices low and urgent. An older man in a flat cap gestured wildly. "This ain't about crime," he said. "It's about control. They don't want us having a say." A woman beside him nodded, her eyes red-rimmed. "Bowser can't even call the guard herself. What kind of democracy is that?" Amara's camera stayed still, but her ears were sharp, catching every word. She knew they were right. The Home Rule Act gave DC some self-governance, but the president's power over the National Guard and now the police made that autonomy feel like a mirage. A sudden shout broke her thoughts. "Amara!" She turned to see Malik jogging toward her, his face slick with sweat. "You gotta come with me," he said, breathless. "They're arresting people at McPherson Square. No reason, just rounding them up." Her heart sank. "Who's they?" "Feds. Maybe guard. I don't know. It's a mess." He grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the metro. "You need to get this on camera." McPherson Square was chaos. Federal agents in dark vests moved through the crowd, zip-tying wrists, while protesters shouted, "This is our city." Amara's camera was up, clicking furiously, capturing a young man being pushed to the ground, his glasses skidding across the pavement. A National Guardsman stood nearby, his face unreadable, but his hands gripped his rifle tightly. Amara's lens caught the moment, the tension in his knuckles, the fear in the protesters' eyes. She spotted the woman from earlier, the guardsman with the tight bun, standing at the edge of the square. Her name tag read Sergeant Elena Torres. Amara approached, her camera lowered. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice steady but sharp. Elena's eyes flicked to her, then away. "Orders," she said, barely audible. "Orders to what?" "Arrest people for speaking out." Amara's voice rose, drawing a glance from another soldier. She didn't care. "You know the crime stats. This isn't about safety." Elena's jaw tightened. "I don't make the calls. I just follow them." Amara wanted to push, to demand more, but Malik pulled her back. "Not now," he whispered. "We need to get these photos out." She nodded, her chest tight, and followed him through the crowd, her camera heavy with the weight of what she'd seen. That night, Amara sat in her small apartment in Shore, her laptop glowing with the day's images. The protesters' glasses on the pavement. Elena's conflicted eyes. The signs demanding statehood. She uploaded them to the Chronicle server, her fingers trembling. Carla called minutes later. "These are gold, Amara. Front page, guaranteed. But are you okay?" Amara hesitated. Was she? The city was unraveling, and she was caught in the middle, torn between documenting it and fighting it. "I'm managing," she said finally. "But this It's personal. I know, Carla said softly. Keep going. We need your eyes out there. After the call, Amara scrolled through X, where the city's anger and fear spilled over. Posts called Trump's move a coup, a power grab, while others cheered it as finally cleaning up D.C. She stopped on one from at Coastal Watchdog. President Trump invoked Section 740, seizing D.C. police amid 35% crime drop since 2023. National Guard deployed despite D.C.'s safety surge. Critics decry erosion of local governance. The words hit like a punch. Erosion. That's what it felt like, her city slipping away. She thought of Elena, the guardsman. What was her story? Why did she look so torn? Amara opened a new tab, searching for information on the National Guard's deployment. She found a report from the New Republic, 800 troops, sent to patrol the district under Trump's orders. She wondered if Elena was one of them, a stranger in her own city, caught in a machine she didn't control. The next morning, Amara was back on the streets, her camera charged and ready. The protests had grown, now stretching from DuPont Circle to the Capitol. She saw familiar faces. Malik, the woman with the megaphone, the man in the flat cap. But she also saw new ones, families, students, even tourists who'd stumbled into the chaos. The air was electric, a mix of fear and defiance. She found Elena again, this time near the White House, where a barricade had been set up. The sergeant was alone, checking her radio. Amara approached, her camera at her side. "You're still here," she said, not a question. Elena looked up, startled. "So are you." "I live here," Amara said. "This is my home. What's your excuse?" Elena's eyes softened, just for a moment. "I'm from Baltimore. Got deployed 2 days ago. Didn't expect this." She gestured vaguely at the barricades, the protesters, the city pulsing with anger. "Then why stay?" Amara asked. "You see what's happening. This isn't about crime." Elena hesitated, her fingers tightening around her radio. "I joined to help people. Thought I'd be doing good. But this," she shook her head. "I don't know anymore." Amara felt a spark of connection, a crack in the wall between them. "You could walk away," she said softly. "You don't have to follow orders you don't believe in." Elena's laugh was bitter. "You ever try walking away from the military? It's not that simple." Amara nodded, understanding more than she wanted to. She raised her camera. "Can I take your picture?" Elena froze, then nodded. Amara snapped the shot, Elena's face half-lit by the morning sun, her eyes carrying the weight of a city's conflict. It was the kind of photo that could define a moment, a career. But to Amara, it was more. It was proof that even in this mess, there were people struggling to do right. Over the next week, the city became a battleground of ideas. Protests swelled, then shrank, then swelled again. Arrests continued, though no one could say exactly why. Amara's photos ran on the Chronicle's front page, each one a knife to the heart of the city's struggle. She met Elena twice more, each time a little less guarded, their conversations brief but heavy. "I read your paper," Elena said once. "Your pictures, they make people see." Amara wanted to believe her. But the city was changing. Businesses on U Street boarded up, afraid of looting that never came. Neighbors stopped talking, divided by politics. Malik was arrested at a rally, released a day later with a bruised cheek and a fire in his eyes. "They can't break us," he told Amara, but his voice wavered. On the 10th day, Amara stood at the Lincoln Memorial, watching the sun set over a city that felt like it was holding its breath. The National Guard was still there, their presence a constant reminder of the president's power. Congress hadn't extended the 30-day limit, but Trump's team hinted it might try. Calls for D.C. statehood grew louder, with lawmakers like Chris Van Hollen and Eleanor Holmes Norton pushing bills to repeal Section 740. Amara wondered if it would be enough. She thought of her grandmother, of the strength she'd passed down. She thought of Elena, caught in a system she didn't fully believe in. She thought of Malik, still fighting despite the bruises. And she thought of her camera, her way of fighting, her way of showing the world what D.C. was, flawed, fierce, and worth saving. Amara raised a lens, capturing the city's silhouette against the fading light. This was her story, her home, her fight. And she wouldn't stop until the world saw it too.